Hello and welcome back to yet another installment in this exclusive video tutorial series from BlenderCookie.com on modeling the M4 assault rifle. My name is Jonathan Williamson, and in this part we're going to continue modeling the body area here, which if you remember right, in the last section we finished off the symmetrical modeling, and so we're now going to work on some of the asymmetrical modeling. Some of this will be a little bit difficult. We definitely have some complex shapes to work with, but we're going to work through it slowly and surely. Jumping over to Blender here, we've got a couple things that I want to do first, namely is tweaking these two little things right here. In the last part, I intended to make these perfectly circular, and only just now I realized that I must not have had my display at the correct aspect ratio in that it was stretching, and so on my display it appeared perfectly round when in fact it was an oval, as you can see here. So we're just going to hit tab to go into edit mode real quick. We're just going to select all these by hitting B, left click and drag, and then we're just going to go ahead and hit S, X, and first hit comma, and then SX, and I still have something else selected up here. So I'll just hit B, middle click and drag, deselect that. Now I'll just hit SX and scale it out over until it's at least up, close enough that no one will ever notice. So then we'll do the same thing over here. So I'm sure that, without a doubt, there's probably some of you out there that had correct aspect ratios that were probably wondering what on earth is he doing at the time. But luckily that is now fixed and hopefully won't hold it against me. Okay, there we are. So what I want to do now is we're going to focus on this side primarily, and what we need to do on that is try and construct this area right in here. Now, we have a couple different options on how we can do this. We can either do it as a separate mesh, or we can do it as a integrated mesh where it's actually part of this structure. Now, there's advantages to both. The advantage to the integrated mesh is that it's all one piece and we get a much more realistic result if done well, because you won't see any kind of seam between the models. The advantage to the other option is that, one, it's a lot easier to model and it's a lot faster to model, but again we have the potential of really noticing a seam right in there. Now I'm going to try and make the best of both worlds, and in fact we're going to make this a separate mesh. But the way that we're going to do it is we'll splay it out towards the end or edge just a little bit such that it looks like it merges a little better. And so this way we're not creating a crazy complex mesh, but we'll create something that should look fairly good. Now I also noticed that this ridge that we have right here also needs to expand or extend out along to here. And so let's go ahead and do that just real quick and it extends that way on both sides of the gun, but something to note is that it's actually rounded right here. So first things first, let's go ahead and alt right click to select this edge loop, and then we're going to hit G and X, pull it over just a little bit until these vertices down here are about lined up. Then we're going to hit B, middle click and drag to deselect those ones, then we'll hit G and X and slide those over to about right there. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Tab, switch into face mode. I'm going to select these faces right here. And let's see, we've still got our mirror modifier on, so we're good to go. And then I'm also going to select these faces right here. And then I'm going to hit Control Shift Tab, just make sure I'm in vertex snap. I'm going to hit E to extrude, X, and snap to, or Y, snap to right there. And then I'll select everything, W, and remove doubles. Now I just need to select these interior faces right here and remove them so that we don't get this nasty pinching that you see right now. Hit X and delete the faces. Then we can go ahead and add in another edge loop right along here to make that nice and sharp. Now these bottom ones here, I will hit Control Tab, switch back to vertex mode. I will deselect these ones up here by middle click and dragging with B and hit G and X, move those along. You can maybe move these back just a little bit, which will smooth those out as well, so that we don't have any kind of ridge right there. Okay, that looks pretty good. We need to sharpen this up a little bit more, so let's add in another edge loop right in here, which actually we can see that then this makes it so we need to move this back over, maybe hit S and X, and there we are. Now, we also want to go ahead and round this out right here. Now, we don't want to actually round out the corner. We want to round out this profile right here. And so what we can do is we're just going to grab these vertices. Or in fact, we can actually just grab this whole loop, hit G and X, and pull that back to right about there. And that will round that out nicely. And in fact, we could go ahead and select this whole loop as well, take that down along the Z-axis, and then that will be very nicely rounded out. Okay, so we'll save that. And now what we're going to do is on a new mesh, so with our cursor centered, let's go ahead and select this. We're going to hit Shift S and cursor to selected. Notice that I'm in object mode right now, so I just hit Tab. We're going to go ahead and hit Shift A, add in, or actually let's first just left click with our cursor. Right about there will be a good spot to put our mesh. And let's hit Shift A, add in a mesh, and let's go ahead and we'll do a circle on this. So let's do a circle. We're going to hit F6, and immediately we're just going to change the vertex count down to 8. And then let's hit Tab to go into edit mode. Let's go ahead and hit R and Y and rotate this 90 degrees like this. Hit enter. Switch back into side view, and then let's hit S to scale it down until it's about the right size, about like that. Then we're going to switch into side view with 3, and we're just going to hit A to deselect everything, and then Control left click and drag across these 3 vertices to select them, hit X, and delete vertices. Let's go ahead and select everything, and we're going to hit G and Y to pull them out. And then let's go ahead and hit Control Shift Tab, switch into face snap mode, and then we're going to hit G, Y to snap it along the Y axis, and then just hold down Control, and it will snap right. Okay, we actually want to go back into vertex mode because it actually snaps all of them if we're on the face mode. So hit G, Y, and then snap to right there. We can switch back and increment snap. And then we're going to go ahead and move this over to about right there. Let's hit Shift Space to unmaximize our view. And under the modifiers panel right here, we're going to go into add modifier and mirror, or excuse me, not mirror, subdivision surface. We'll go ahead and turn the subdivisions onto optimal display. And then let's just hit E to extrude, bring it out along the X-axis, and take a look. Now right now it's maybe a little large. Let's select everything and hit S and Shift X. Scale it down a bit like that. Maybe a little bit less. Let's go ahead and bring it back along the Y-axis about like that. And that should be good. Now we're going to go ahead and take this edge right to here. We're going to hit E to extrude, take it out along the X-axis by hitting X. Take it out such that it's lined up here. And then we'll extrude this again all the way over here. And then we're going to just extrude again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select these 2 vertices by right-shift clicking on them and hit Shift-S, cursor to selected. Then Alt-right-click to select the entire loop. Let's hit period to scale towards our cursor such that now we can hit E to extrude. Then immediately hit S and just scale it in towards the cursor just a little bit at first. And then we'll do it again. And that will create a nice sharp edge while leaving this edge perfectly flat. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab this vertex, hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch over to vertex snap, hit E to extrude, Y for along the Y-axis, and then just snap right to that vertex. Because now I can just go ahead and select these 4 vertices, hit F to fill a face, and then these 4 by shift right-clicking and hit F to fill a face. And so then that just ends that right there. Okay, let's go ahead and do the same thing basically over here. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and select these 2, Shift-S, cursor to selected. Then I'm going to hit E to extrude, take it out like this, take it out a little further, and then I'll scale it down. And then I'll do it again and scale it down again such that I'm still keeping this side flat, but I'm creating a nice kind of dome shape on here. I'm going to do it one more time, about like that. Grab this vertex, snap it out along the Y. Oops. And then I will fill these faces. We can maybe pull that out along the X there just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and let's add in a loop right here. Just like that. Control R, then right click. And what that'll do is then give us these vertices, which we can extrude from. And I'm going to go ahead and grab these ones right here, which will give me just enough to extrude from, or actually no, we're going to extrude from here. We're going to hit E to extrude, take it down a little bit along the, let's just go along the Z axis like this. Then we're going to select these two vertices, Shift S, cursor to selected, select all of these surfaces. We're going to hit period, scale to 0 along the Z, and again it's scaling towards the cursor. Let's go ahead and we're going to grab these vertices here, hit S, X, scale in like that. Or actually, before we do that, let's go and add in an edge loop right near each one of these edges, about like that, because then we can go ahead and select these, scale them in, and what that does then is just rounds off this form. Okay, maybe bring them in a little bit further. And then we're going to go ahead and extrude it down again. And before we go any further, let's go ahead and we're just going to select these face vertices along with these ones here. And we're going to hit X and delete vertices to delete those underlying edges. Now right now you'll notice that's a little bit thick, so let's go ahead. We'll grab all these and all these. We're going to hit SX, scale it in a bit, even it out just enough. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll take this down again right past this little ridge, and then we're going to select our side vertices here, Shift S, cursor to selected. Let's also go ahead and select these, scale them in along the X-axis. We'll better round that out. We'll select this, and we're going to, in fact, let's get rid of that center loop. We actually don't need that, so I'll just Alt-right click to select it, and then delete edge loop. Select this, E to extrude, take it down, scale in, and down again, scale in. Now this time it creates a little bit more of a point on it. And then this time we're just going to take this edge, X vertex, hit E to extrude, in along the X, then again, and then fill in these areas. Okay, let's select everything in W and shade smooth. So we can start to see, let's make sure this has the same material as everything else. In fact, these don't actually have a material on them, but they have a material slot. And so Blender actually shades it differently. I don't know why, but it does. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this, then shift right click, select this, hit Control L, and make links to the materials. And actually, instead we'll just give this an empty slot. And so that will make it the same. We'll do the same thing with that one there that also missed it earlier on. Okay, now on this, let's go ahead and take this one down a little bit more, and then we're just going to take these vertices. We're hit E to extrude, pull it out along the X-axis, select these, hit Shift S, cursor to selected, select all these vertices, hit S, X, and 0, pull it in perhaps a bit more. Let's select these. We're going to hit comma to scale towards individual centers. We'll scale this in. We'll scale both these in along the Z. Let's go ahead and delete that face. And in fact, yeah. Oops. There we go. And now let's just go ahead and take this all the way out. And it needs to come to the edge of this. And so let's just take this whole area. Let's take this up just a bit like that. And this comes right to the edge here. Now we're just going to add in another edge loop, which I'm going to take all the way up, and then I will slide it back after left clicking, which gives me a nice transfer between those. Add in another loop, bring it over to right about there, and then what we're going to do is let's go ahead and select these. Let's hit Shift S, cursor to selected. Then I'm going to select all these vertices, and let's type in shear. So I'll hit its spacebar, and then shear is a very cool tool that you can see is Shift Control Alt S, and since we're going around the cursor by hitting period, we can hit Control Alt Shift S, and now we can actually shear the more we move it along that axis. Now you'll notice right now it's based on the view, and so let's go hit 1 to go into front view, and hit Control Alt Shift S, and it didn't work that time. There we go. And I can see how it's going. So I can see that I'm not in the right view. So let's switch to top view. And there we go. That's working. And so now I'm just going to move my mouse more and more to the left, about like that. And then I can see that's working quite nicely. And that looks pretty good, although I might go ahead and grab these, pull them over a little bit. Maybe I'll grab these, pull them over a little bit. In fact, maybe we'll just slide that whole edge up. Let's select all of it, pull it back there just a little bit, and then let's grab all this bottom half and pull it up along the z-axis a bit just to make sure it's nice and smooth there. Let's also grab these and we'll scale them in along the z-axis. In fact, actually, let's grab all these so they're a bit flatter like that. Okay, now the way that we're going to do this to make it splay out a little bit is we're going to select this loop. We're going to go ahead and hit G and Y, pull it back along the Y-axis just a little bit, hit E to extrude, down along the Y, and let's hit Alt-S, which should just splay all those out along the normals, which will give it a little bit of the effect of kind of a bead around it. So you can see there where it kind of comes out, and then it splays in towards the rest of the gun. And so now we need to just make a few adjustments right in here. We'll just pull these up about like that, and we're good to go. Okay, so that does it for that. I noticed that this edge right in here is a bit sharp right now, so I'm going to deselect this section, hit Control E and edge slide, and just slide that up a bit to make that a little softer. Let's go ahead, and this perhaps needs to come over a bit, and bring this over a bit. And I'm not sure why I have an extra loop in here, so I'm going to select it, delete it, bring these over, bring these over. Let's take these all the way over to there. Grab that one vertex, just slide it in just a little bit, and that looks pretty good. Now, technically, this surface ought to be raised in a little bit, which we could do, but I'm not going to worry about it because it's such a minor detail. And so we're just going to ignore it for the time being. But now I do want to add in the small, I honestly have no idea what it is, but I think maybe the clip release right in here. It's basically a button that looks kind of like this. And in fact, well, no, we won't. It looks kind of like the end of this, where it's got the rings around it. You can see it right here, except that it's oval shaped. But what makes this difficult is that the rings are actually perfectly circular, but they've just been cut off on the side. So let's go ahead and center our cursor right there. We'll go ahead and it's positioned just about right. We're going to hit Shift A, add mesh, and circle. On this circle, let's go ahead and hit F6. We're going to align it to view, and let's use 18 vertices on this. And then we're going to hit Tab, scale it way down to the right size, which is right in there. And then what we can see is that we're basically going to cut it off from here. And so let's just select this. We're going to hit E to extrude, right click, scale it in a bit like that. And basically we're just going to try and scale it in for each ridge. And there'll be one, say right there, another one there. And in fact, if we look at this, I'm looking at another reference on the side. It's this one here. We can see that it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rings plus the inside knob. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then take it in a little bit, and then will be the inside knob. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to hit E to extrude, right click, W, and merge at center. Okay, let's go ahead and alt right click on here. Let's hit E to extrude, take it back along the Y-axis just a little bit. Let's select everything, and hit G, Y, pull it back just a bit like that. Should be just a little less than the thickness of that. We're going to go ahead, hit Tab, and let's now hit Control Tab, switch into face mode, and we're going to Alt right click, Alt Shift right click, and actually it looks like let's see, 1, 2, okay, I've got not quite enough, so let's select this, hit Control E, and edge slide, slide it in. Actually, I guess I can just use scale. And so we'll have 1 loop, 2 loops, 3 loops, and in fact there's 4. Bring that in, we'll bring that in, add in 1 more loop here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, again another loop, and I just want to even these out just a bit with the loops themselves being a little larger then the gaps in between them. So then there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we're going to go ahead and select, let's actually select the inner ones. So I'm Alt-Shift right-clicking on the edges between those, and then we're going to go ahead, hit E to extrude, or looks like I was scaling towards the cursor. So let's hit comma, and we're going to go ahead and Control-Tab, switch back to vertex, select all this, S, Y, and 0. Switch back to face mode, and then we can Alt-Shift, Alt-right-click, Alt-Shift right-click, Alt-Shift right-click, and Alt-Shift right-click on all of those. Hit E to extrude, take it in just a bit like that. I'm going to Control-Tab, switch back to vertex mode. Let's select this loop, and we can just scale that out, which will help give us a sharp crease right there. And now what we want to do is to go ahead and cut this off right here. Now this is a little bit more difficult than it may initially seem. So we're going to cut it off right in, basically right through here, all the way up to here, and so on. First, let's go ahead and select this. We're going to hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch back to Increment Snap, and let's rotate that just 5 degrees, such that it's perfectly parallel there. And actually, let's do another 10 degrees, so a total of 15, since we have a flat edge here. And we're going to go ahead, select everything from here out, about like that. Let's hit, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good way to do this actually. Technically, we could do it with booleans, but booleans are tend to cause an absolute mess. And so I like to avoid them if we can. So let's see. Although actually what I think we'll do is we're going to go ahead and do booleans on this. So I'm going to hit Shift A, add mesh and cube. On this cube then, let's hit Tab to go in edit mode, and we're just going to scale it down about like there. So it's above these edges, and then we're going to hit S, X, scale it in to right about, actually let's just go ahead and scale right to this vertex. Hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch to vertex, S, X, snap to there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select this. We're going to go ahead and add in a Boolean modifier. On this Boolean, we're going to set this object to be the cube, which if we select it now, we can see is cube.011. So we'll just scroll down, grab it right there. And what we now want to do is change the operation from operation to difference, or no, to intersect. There we are. And then we're going to go ahead and click apply. We're going to hit tab to go into edit mode, and then let's just select these vertices, hit X, and delete vertices. We'll go ahead and select that cube, delete it, and that then applies that. And then what we just want to do is go in and try and do any cleanup work that we can. So for example, I'll grab this vertex, I'll snap it to right there, grab this one, I'll go ahead and snap it to right there, select everything, W, remove doubles. We can see these there. That doesn't need to be there. We can then fill a face there, remove doubles, fill that, or actually that face shouldn't even be there. Nor should that face, at least not yet. And so with the Boolean modifier, you have to do a fair bit of cleanup if you want to avoid some disasters of meshes. And so I'm just going through, I'm grabbing these, merging some of them, removing some edges in here. Go ahead and grab these three. I'm going to hit W, merge at center, and then we'll merge them up onto that edge there. Let's select everything, W, and remove doubles. Hit Control-Tab, switch to face mode, fill that face, hit X, delete that face. Let's go ahead, and you'll notice that we've got some triangles in here, which we're not going to worry about just yet. Switch back to vertex mode, delete that edge. We'll go ahead and merge these three. We'll just select all three, then merge at last. Again, merge at last. Select everything, W, remove doubles. Control-Tab, select these faces, fill that triangle. Let's go ahead and select this. I'm going to hit Control-T, switch that into triangles, and then I'll select these two, fill a quad, and fill a quad. Or actually, that shouldn't be there, so we'll just snap to there. And it looks like that one side is good. I'm going to go ahead and delete the left side, hit X, delete vertices, add in a mirror modifier. That looks good. Now let's go ahead and add in a new loop cut right here and right there. Then we'll Alt-Shift right-click just like both of them. And we're going to hit G, Y, and snap up to there, such that now we can fill in an edge loop. Or fill in a face, fill in a face, fill in a face, and fill in a face. Then we'll go ahead and Alt-right-click, select these, deselect these vertices, hit E to extrude, take it down to right there, select everything, W, remove doubles, and that looks pretty good. So then what we may need to do, we don't really like these triangles in here, and we need to actually add in, let's see, right now this is maybe a little bit large, so we're going to scale it down a little bit. About like that, just scaling towards the cursor. Select everything, W, and shade smooth. We'll hit Control N, and looks pretty good. Now we don't really like these triangles in here, but we may need to put up with them. We could add in an edge loop like that, and in fact, actually, I think I will add in these to each one, as these will allow us to convert those to quads, which will behave a bit nicer as soon as we add in the subdivision surface modifier. Now, the only reason that we're adding in the subsurface modifier is so that we don't see any of these edges when we get to render time. So we'll add that in, and now then what we need to do is go in here. Actually, that looks pretty good. We're just gonna leave that as is. You're not gonna see that anymore from a distance. So let's just go in, let's select this whole thing, pull it out towards the Y, and then we're going to hit Control Tab, switch into vertex mode, select all these, hit period. Or actually, we're going to, no. In fact, we're going to select, say, this loop here. We're going to hit Shift D, move it along the Y until we can snap to right there. And then we're going to go ahead. Let's hit Tab to go out of edit mode. Let's hit Shift H. We can hide everything else. And let's fill in these faces in between here. Maybe I'll select these and select those, and then I'll hit Shift H so I can isolate it. Fill those. Fill those. And you can see I'm going to need to add in some vertices. But before I do that, let's see what I can get away with. We'll go and add in 2 vertices on there and there. We'll go and select them. We'll just scale the tiniest bit away from the cursor, excluding the Y-axis just in case they're not aligned. So I just hit Shift-Y. And I can see that I'm going to need to add in a couple more. And still 2 more then. And I know I could get away with triangles here, but like I've said in the past, I think it's just good practice to always do the quads because it allows you to really see exactly what you're getting. There we go. And now we have a nice little button, which I don't know, but I assume is the clip release. There we go. Okay, that looks good. Again, we're just going to give this the empty material slot just so that we have consistency between the appearance of our mesh in object mode. And now let's go ahead and let's see, looking at these, give me just a moment as I peruse through my references. I think we just need to do this one right in here is the main thing that we're still missing. And if I grab a good shot of that, here we go. This one looks really good. So we can see that we have this kind of pin with a little chip missing out of it. Honestly, it looks a bit like a Pac-Man. So we're going to go ahead and make said Pac-Man. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to duplicate this object here. I'm going to move it over like that. Hit Tab to go into edit mode. Select everything, X, and remove vertices. Let's also remove the mirror modifier. and then we're going to hit Tab, Shift S, and cursor to selected. Hit Tab to go back in edit mode. Even though this is still an object, even though it doesn't have any vertices, it's just an empty object. So we'll now hit Shift A, add in a circle, hit F6. We're going to change this circle down to 12, ought to be just fine. We'll set the size at 0.1, and then we'll align it to the view. Then we can go ahead and scale it down a little bit more. We'll hit E to extrude, scale it in just a little bit. Then again, right to about the Pac-Man point, and we'll extrude again, scale it in, and one last time, W, merge at center. Then we're going to go ahead and select these, hit E to extrude, and then we're going to hit S, period first, scale in along the X, deselect these, scale in a bit along the X some more, move it up just a little bit along the Z axis, scale these in just a bit to make this more of a straight line. Let's go ahead and select these, hit X, delete the faces, and delete that edge there, and that edge right there. Then we'll go ahead and select all these, take an entire perimeter, extrude down along the Y, and then again, and we have our Pac-Man. Okay, and then what I want to do is I'm just going to set this in to the surface about like that. And let's go ahead and take another look at this reference. And that looks pretty good, although we can see that this actually has an inset. And so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit S, X, and 0. And select these, S, X, and 0. Let's go and select these, pull them over about like that. I'm going to hit N to bring up my edge length. So hit that there. And I can see that this is 0.082 by 0.049. And this is 0.149, so we need to make this perfect 1. And that way, we'll have a full square between these. Which now, if we just bring this to the middle, you can see right there at 0.75. Then we can just slide this over right in line with the peak here. We'll hit E to extrude, right-click, scale it in. And then we're going to bring it in along the y-axis a bit, and then again, and then we're going to go ahead, select these, hit S and Z, scale them down until we get a nearly perfect circle. I'm going to hit S, Shift Y, just bring these up just a little bit. You can see I need to scale these down just a little bit more. Maybe bring them in just a little bit. And there we go. Well, still not quite right. That ought to be close enough. We'll lower that down just a little bit to improve the circle. And there we go. I would say that ought to be good enough for just about anyone. Now I'm not sure, but I don't believe that actually goes through to the other side. Let me scroll through my references real quick. Actually it does, it's just something else on the other side, so that's good, we can leave that. Now on one of mine, I did find, let me find it real quick here, on this one here. This actually has a slight bevel on it, and so we're just going to jump over here, and let's go ahead and select this, Shift S, cursor to selected. Then we're going to select all of these loops. We'll select these ones as well. And then we want to deselect these here. And we're going to hit period, scale towards the cursor, scale it down about like that. And then we'll go ahead and add in another edge loop right there. And then we can go ahead and slide this along by hitting Control E, slide that around. And that will give us a nice, slightly better surface right in there. So we'll save this. And now we're coming in at 35 minutes or so right now. So we're not going to do a whole lot more, but what I would like to do is add in this piece right in here, which if we look at this, we can see it's got basically a triangle shape right in here, and then it comes right up to this. And then on this side here, it's actually basically flat. So that dark part you're seeing right in here is actually flat. And so let's just jump back over to Blender. We're going to position our cursor right about there. Hit Shift A, add in a cube. Let's scale this cube down to about the right width, something about like that. Let's go ahead and turn off our subsurf modifier right now while in edit mode. And then what I want to do is this top piece is flat, so we're going to leave that. But let's select these two vertices, bring them over along the x-axis to right about there. We'll bring these ones over a bit more. Let's select this face, we'll hit X, delete the faces. Let's bring this down to about there or so. And then I'm going to grab this vertex. I'm going to pull it up along the y-axis. Then I'll grab these. Oops, actually, before I do that, let's grab all these, pull them up along the y-axis. Then I'll grab these two, pull them up. Well, actually, no, I want to take these ones back along the y to right about there, because once we add in the ridge around here, those will basically come up on top of that ridge and should be right about the right depth like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's just take this, and what I want to do is, again, I want to shear it. So I'm going to hit Control-Alt-Shift-S, and you can see it's going the wrong way, so let's switch into top, or let's see, hit 3, Control-Alt-Shift-S, still going the wrong way, hit top view. We may need to go to, let's see, sometimes the shearing can be a bit weird to figure out exactly how it's working. Let's go ahead and set our cursor to right here, Control-Alt-Shift-S, or sorry, Shift-S, select these, Control-Alt-Shift-S, and let's see, why is this not working? I don't know, but that's okay. We're going to deselect this. We're just going to grab this just a little. Well, in fact, let's actually just pull that up like that. That'll be all right. Pull that up, then we'll take it down to there. And take this one, take it down just a little bit such that it lines up. Let's go and add in some edge loops. So we'll slide one right over here, slide another one right over there. And we'll do the same thing here and here. We can go ahead and re-enable the modifier in edit mode, select everything, W, and shade smooth. And actually this is on the same meshes here, which should not be the case, but it is. And now this top surface actually is a little bit rounded, so let's take this, we're gonna just pull it down just a little bit. Let's add in another edge loop, which then we'll pull up just a little bit. Slide that along. Let's maybe go ahead and take these up just a little bit more. And then this actually just a moment. It's actually a rather awkward shape to try and model. So it looks like this needs to go ahead, and these actually both will come in along the y-axis. And we'll bring this top edge in just a little bit more. Now we're going to take the whole thing down a little bit because it's basically evenly split between here and here. And that looks to be just about right, except that I want to get rid of this. Right here it should be a little more evenly shaped, about like that. I'm going to take this loop in. Okay, and I think we will call that good enough for there. Let's bring this over just a bit more. About like so. Let's go ahead and select this, or I guess that's already there. No, we just want to select this circle on here that we no longer need. Hit X, delete the vertices. And let's do one last thing in the few minutes that we have, and that is to add in the trigger. So the trigger is going to be fairly simple. We can see it right in here. Oh, well, actually, I guess we can't see it on this one. Let's see if we scroll through here. Grab it from one of these. There we go. This one's actually pretty good. So we can see we've got basically this shape in here within a recessed bit right through there. So this won't be too difficult. Let's go ahead right in here. We're not going to worry about extracting a hole there for it. We're just going to position the cursor right about there, and it's already aligned. I guess Shift S, cursor to selected, just in case. Then we'll position it right about there. Shift A, add in a cube. Hit Tab to go into edit mode. Scale it way down, and the width looks to be about right, like that. Let's go ahead and we'll bring it up, and then we're just going to take this down to right about here. We're going to add in, say, maybe just like 3 edge loops at first. And then we can just kind of rotate this around. Bring it down about like that. We'll rotate these ones here. And I'm just going to bring these all closer. Something about like that. We'll bring that up. I'm going to go ahead and hit X, delete these faces. Bring that over a bit more. Bring this back a little bit more. Let's go and add in an edge loop right about like that. We'll add in another one right in here, because then we can select this. And all the way down to the bottom there. And we're just going to hit E to extrude, right click, and hit S and Y. Scale it in. Something like that. Let's go and select these, hit X, delete that face, and we're just going to add in 2 edge loops there, which actually, if we then just grab this, we can hit GY, snap to there, GY, snap to there. Do the same thing with the internal edges, but I'll just hit S and then Y, and I can select everything, W, remove doubles, and that will give me a perfect mesh there. I can go ahead and slide this down a bit like that, deselect that one, bring these over a bit more. If I now add in a subsurf modifier, see what that'll look like. I can add in another edge loop right through here, move it over. Then I can go down here and I'm going to grab these edges, slide it up, just smooth that out, select everything, W, and shade smooth. Add in another loop right through there, sharpen it up. We'll add in another loop right in there, sharpen that. And then we'll add in just one more right in the center to sharpen that up just a little bit. And finally, we'll grab these vertices, pull them up, and maybe add in one more loop right there to sharpen that up just a little bit. And that gives us a pretty decent trigger, actually. That looks pretty good right in here. Let's go ahead and give it the empty material slot. And there we are. Maybe we'll go ahead, bring these over a bit more, add in a bit more curve to it. And then right now it's maybe a little too far forward, so we'll pull it back to right about there. And that gives us a pretty good trigger. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this. We're right at 45 minutes, but you can start to see that it's really coming together. So we'll pick this up next time on doing this section right in here and working on the other side. And then hopefully in a couple more sections, we'll get to the back, the stock, and the clip. So we've still got a ways to go, but we're definitely on the home stretch.